We're going to wait just a couple of minutes. People sign in, and we'll be back. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are, whenever you are. This is the Central-Asia-Caucasus Institute from Washington, and today we have our subject as Kyrgyzstan, the Kyrgyz Republic. This is the second smallest population of the region, yet from the beginning, the first days of independence, Kyrgyzstan has played an outsized role. It was Kyrgyz president, after all, the first president, Akayev, who invented the term Central Asia instead of Srednya Asia, Middle Asia. And it was also the first president, Akayev, who conceived the idea of Kyrgyz Republic as the Switzerland of Central Asia, an ingenious move on his part. But beyond that, this is a country that initiated a bold parliamentary system of government, and they tried to make it work as best they could over many years. There were successes and there were shortcomings, and that's now been replaced with a presidential system. And it seems to be working quite effectively for all its imperfections. And we all know that all presidential systems have challenges. Now, in addition to that, the Kyrgyz population has played an outsized role in the culture of the region. And this goes back thousands of years, as I describe in my book, Lost Enlightenment. But more important is the fact that the single most significant cultural figure from Central Asia as a whole is Kyrgyz, and that is the late Genghis Aytmatov. You all read or heard the tale, his terrifying tale of the Mankurt. But the fact is, Kyrgyz Republic is playing a major role in spite of its relatively small size. The current president is Sadyr Japarov, and he is very active on every front. He has introduced a presidential system, but there are still elections, there's still campaigning, all that goes on. And like all systems in the world, it's always in a state of evolution. The credit to President Japarov, great credit, has to go to his efforts against corruption. A subject on which our institute published a book by Mr. Engvall now a decade ago. And President Japarov has taken on this issue frontally, but he's also addressed the great issues of resources. He promised to bring the Kumtor mine back to ownership of Kyrgyzstan, and that has happened. He has also been very active on the waterfront with the various dams and so forth, and power generating stations that are either existing or planned for the future. The most important thing, though, is, I would say, Mr. Japarov's focus on human resources. He's been an effective education president. He has restored or gotten back under control, government control, hundreds of schools that were, some of which were greatly flagging. And our guest today, about whom more in just a minute, served as Minister of Education, and he can fill in that more details on this very important development. Another area of President Japarov's activity is transport. He has pushed through the China, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan railway. This is a major shift in the communication and transport for the entire region. And he is also, and I would lay particular emphasis on this one, he has done much to reduce and even do away with the traditional North-South competition and rivalry that has sometimes produced very unproductive results in Kyrgyzstan. He's opened airports both in the north and in the south. He's opened road connections, both north and south. And he has done this in a very balanced way, which helps integrate the country in a way that it hasn't been before. This, in turn, opens up the development of the South, the whole Fergana Valley region, about which Central-Asia-Caucasus Institute published a book some years ago, saying this is really the heart of Central Asia, and the Kyrgyz role in that book and in the future of the Fergana Valley is very significant, and it certainly has been enhanced by President Japarov's activity. I would argue that one of his main legacies will be his initiative on a Central Asia-wide front. He convened at Chalpanata on Issyk-Kul, very pretty place if you've not been there. He convened a conference of presidents from all over Central Asia, and they adopted a very impressive list of common activities that they would promote. And I hope in the course of this discussion today, we could hear more about this. That took place in July 2022. They agreed on, I think, 26 points of common activity. Is anyone following up? Is there a study telling what has been done and what has not been done? I would challenge the Kyrgyz government to undertake such a study. After all, it was the Kyrgyz who initiated this important development. So, with this background, let me turn to our two speakers, Almazbek Beishenaliev, I'm sorry. Almaz Beishenaliev is a scholar. He was founder in 2020 of the Regional Institute for Central Asia in Bishkek, a very important institution, purely his initiative. He is an author of a forthcoming book on the Urkun, the terrible rebellion that took place, and very bloody rebellion that took place in Central Asia in 1916 against the Tsarist draft in the army. That book will come out soon. He is a former Rumsfeld Fellow, and he is the a very highly respected former Minister of Education of the Republic of Kyrgyzstan. We're also going to hear from a very, very good friend of ours, and from the American Chamber of Commerce, I'm sorry, the U.S. Kyrgyzstan Business Council, which was founded in 2016, and which is supplemented by the American Chamber of Commerce in Bishkek, which was founded in 2024. This is a very important institution, and that we're discussing here, the Business Council, because it is the place where serious investment, serious projects of a serious scale is discussed and actually implemented. They don't just talk, they do. And we're very honored to have their long-term director of this Kyrgyz-American initiative here with us to speak today. I want to conclude with just a note. and that is that most world regions have a caucus, a meeting in the U.S. Congress of those members of Congress who are particularly interested in and involved with those countries. There is the germ of a Central Asia caucus with Senators Gary Peters and Steve Downs of Montana. He of Montana. They have taken the first steps toward this. There are caucuses for various countries, but not yet a developed caucus for the region. And I'm hoping that the Business Council, about which we'll hear more today, the members of it, acting individually and together, can encourage the development of that caucus in the Congress, which could only strengthen Central Asia-U.S. relations as a whole and U.S. Kyrgyz relations in particular. So let me turn to each of you in turn. Almazbek Beishenaliev.
So first of all, I would like to thank Central-Asia and Caucasus Institute for having me here. And also thank you very much, Dr. Starr, giving us this opportunity to highlight initiatives of Kyrgyzstan and region-wide and global-wide. And this is a great opportunity for us. First, I would like to start with Kyrgyz-US relations that after the independence of Soviet Union countries, so United States was the first country that welcomed the independence of these states. And Kyrgyzstan has good ties, diplomatic relations since 1991. Also bilateral, also multilateral platforms. For example, I'd like to give an exact example about the membership of Kyrgyzstan to WTO organization. And in 1998, Kyrgyzstan became the first member state to WTO organization, and I was ambassador also in WTO. So in this regard, United States played a key role to promote Kyrgyzstan in WTO because there was a Jackson-Winnick amendment, and up to this amendment, Kyrgyzstan couldn't be a member to the WTO. But at that time, Askar Akayev wrote a letter to Senate, to Congress, and Senate changed this amendment up to Kyrgyzstan. This is a great support to new, how can I say, rising.
An issue which is still,
yes,
that remains, the dregs of this issue are still being fought over today.
Yes.
But you were the first to break through on that.
Yes.
Kyrgyz.
Yes, and the states changed its amendment up to the Kyrgyzstan's members. And till this period, so Kyrgyzstan also get a member to another organizations, and there also United States played a great role. From the beginning of this diplomatic relations, so the United States over 3 decades supporting the Central Asian countries in many aspects, like security issues or political or economic issues, also in humanitarian aspects. Since 1991, United States provided more than $9 billion support assistance to peace, security, and democratic reforms and economic growth, as well as the humanitarian aids. And the United States also gave credit and loans to the region over $50 billion through international finance institutions like World Bank, International Monetary Foundation, or European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, or ADB, Asian Development Bank, and other international institutions. And also, I want to highlight that United States, from United States private sector, invested in Central Asia region overall more than $31 billion US, which is very significant number. So up to this, they're created more thousands of jobs, and the United States was also the key player to building a human capacity in Central Asia. One evidence we can say that more than 40,000 students and professionals funded by United States to get their degrees or their education or exchange programs in the United States. Also, this is a good number for the region. And large numbers of Central Asians, as we know, immigrated to United States, and they have now their diasporas here. Before I came to Washington, D.C., I visited some friends in Chicago, where Kyrgyz diaspora is very active and a large number of Kyrgyz are there. So when we look in first decade, when they came after independence, they started to immigrate to the United States. They started their works as a taxi driver. Maybe they were doing some deliveries. But then after decades, they changed their works. Mostly they converted their professions to IT specialists. And today I visited some Kyrgyz companies in Chicago, and it's amazing to having business people also in the United States from Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, and from Central Asia, from Kazakhstan and other countries. And they are now establishing good ties with their homelands, with our region, and it's also a great thing to highlight. So as we see from the diplomatic ties, the United States funded more than 70 projects on cultural aspects. So they are funding to unique culture and antiques, traditions, and archaeological sites of the region, which is important for the next upcoming generation. And I find these supports are very important. And as United States foreign policy in the Central Asia, we can see in the many aspects that's overarching and mutually reinforcing. For example, the support and strengthen the sovereignty and independence of Central Asian states individually and as a region. One evidence we can say, for example, American University of Central Asia is a very good example for this, which established in 1993. And when we look to statistics, each year Central Asians make them more 1.4 million visitors are coming to American space, American cities, to learn English or experience American culture or gain, how can I say, demand skills. And second objects, we can say that reduce terrorism threats in Central Asian region is very important aspect. So United States has invested over $90 million into border security in Central Asia across the region. So conducted over 200 trainings and trained more than 2,600 officers of the borders. So this is also quite good number. And as I know, 13 operational border posts were built and funded by United States support. And also there's another object that is expand and maintain support for the stability in Afghanistan. Of course, Central Asia after 9/11 has played a crucial role in supporting regional peace, global peace. So one base in Karshi, Khanabad, and second one is in Manas from 2001 and 2014. Functioned more than 13 years in Kyrgyzstan. Then there was a transition from U.S. military, joint military force to Kyrgyz military force. So this was also a good sign of the good relations that time. And also another aspect is about the energy, economy, cultural trade, and security lines, which is directly related to regional security. CASA 1000 project, for example, is a good evidence that we can export our, how can I say, electricity to Afghanistan and Pakistan, and there also United States played a key role to realize this project. And promoting rule of law and respect for human rights, elections, transparent policy formulations, rule of law and respect for human rights, also the main topic of the agenda of our bilateral and multilateral relations, and promoting United States investment and development of Central Asia. As I mentioned, $31 billion investment from private sector to commercial ventures in the region is a quite good proof of these relations.
Well, this is an impressive history that you've summarized. Turning to the present and to American investment in Central Asia as a whole, and specifically in the Kyrgyz Republic, I want to turn to Elena Son, but in doing so, I want to say something that's well known to anyone in Washington who's interested in Central Asia or in Kyrgyzstan, and that is if you are interested in anything to do with American investment in the country, the one person to go to who's really on top of it in terms of information and knowledge and contact with the actual people involved on both sides, it's Elena. She's a hero of the economic development in Central Asia and the potential U.S. role in it. And I think we're all in her debt because of what she's managed to do. Elena, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Dr. Starr. It's always a pleasure participating in your events. And like I mentioned, I would rather be a listener and listen to you rather than present on topics such as Kyrgyzstan. I think that we always recognize and acknowledge your significant role in providing very sober and very realistic vision of how the U.S. should engage with Central Asia and specifically Kyrgyzstan. So Again, I appreciate the opportunity. I think I also have very big shoes to fill in. As you know, previous panelist could not participate, and so I had to step in, and I appreciate the opportunity to present the U.S. engagement, private sector engagement with the Kyrgyz Republic. First of all, it is on behalf of the U.S. Kyrgyzstan Business Council and all our members. I'm delighted to be here and to speak before the audience that is interested in learning more about our commercial trade and investment engagement with the Kyrgyz Republic. So I should say that there is a chronology of events that I wanted to highlight when presenting our partnership with this market. But before I do so, I think that realistically, the U.S. and other highly developed, well-developed economies have largely underestimated Kyrgyzstan because there is this traditional or stereotypical groupthink, right, of looking into markets that are large, that have larger potentials, a wide spectrum of industries and skills and population, and Kyrgyzstan, we feel, have not been quoted the way it should be by American business. So as a result, in 2016, our companies decided to create the U.S. Kyrgyzstan Business Council. And so in doing so, we wanted to acknowledge the important and critical role that Kyrgyz Republic plays not only in Central Asia, but also serves in the interest of the United States of having strong relations. Kyrgyzstan, as you know, neighbors China. And so it's a gateway to not only one of the largest markets, but also the market that is a host of many international businesses. So like I said, in 2016, that was a private sector. And I should say also just make a caveat that we are a trade and investment body. We don't go and we don't get involved into politics. We only do trade and investment, and we work with the governments and the peoples of the U.S. and the Kyrgyz Republic on how to empower and how to strengthen the economic foundation of the country, And I think what we're seeing right now is that there is a full alignment of the U.S. commercial interests and the Kyrgyz commercial interests. And I'll go into specifics why. As you know, the new administration right now is looking into more foreign investments into the American market, and so does Kyrgyzstan. Kyrgyzstan looks into investments in the Kyrgyz market. However, we are seeing more Kyrgyz, as the previous speaker indicated, there's a very strong Kyrgyz diaspora here, and they have been investing a lot in a variety of industries here in the United States, generating jobs here, most obviously, also sending investments that support urbanization and modernization and construction in their own home country, as well as opening new businesses, but also developing the industry, which really emerged very rapidly after COVID, and that's trucking and also supporting the trucking industry outside of the United States from Kyrgyzstan. In 2016, after the establishment of our council, we were the first ones to bring the very first U.S. business delegation to the country. Believe it or not, nobody actually had the courage or interest, I don't know, either or, to actually put together a business delegation and bring it to Kyrgyz Republic. And I remember back in the days, people were curious, and they asked me, like, Elena, how many companies do you think you would bring to Kyrgyzstan? And I said, well, you know, this is the first time that we are doing so maybe if we bring 5, I will be happy. But actually, we brought 13. And so these were major companies. These were General Electric, these were Coca-Cola, these were Visa, and these were General Electric, this were ARCO, this were Baker McKenzie, so John Deere, and people were surprised on both sides of the Atlantic. I think everybody were amazed as to how quickly we were able to generate so much interest in the Kyrgyz Republic. In 2020, then COVID, and with COVID, we did not stop. What we actually did, we transformed all of our activities into online format, and we showcased Kyrgyzstan and Kyrgyzstan's relations with Central Asian partners, with Central Asian neighbors. We were the first ones, again, in the history of the U.S. relations with Central Asia, who brought all the ambassadors here in Washington, D.C., including Afghanistan, to speak before the U.S. business audience about business opportunities. We did not discuss geopolitical relations. We only focused on trade and investments. And we were the first ones, again, to bring in 2018 a panel of Central Asian trade ministers to, again, speak before the American audience. And again, that was all done to emphasize that there is a lot of activities, commercial activities that can benefit the U.S. government in the Kyrgyz Republic as well as in the United States. In 2024, just last year, we brought the largest in history of the U.S. Kyrgyz Republic business delegation. And the business delegation included a wide diversity of well-established companies that wanted to go back because there is business, which is great. So ongoing discussions, because I think that sometimes erroneously people think like, where are the new companies? Where are the new companies? I think that the first indicator of a strength of the market is when you see the same companies consistently coming back, because that means that there is a lot of activity, that there is a lot of discussion, and that there is interest, and that there is a business to pursue. But we also brought well-established and new companies to the market to discuss, again, a variety of issues. And what we really appreciate about Kyrgyzstan is the Kyrgyz government's desire and interest and support to engage with American business. It begins with President Japarov, who is an entrepreneur, so he understands the needs of the business. It also includes just a recently retired Prime Minister Almazbek Beishenaliev, who is a great economist, great businessman as well, and who has been instrumental to developing our partnership with the Kyrgyz Republic. In terms of the beauty of working with Kyrgyzstan, I think that in many ways and in many conversations, companies and individuals who do business, they always ask us, where is a market where we can put together impactful programs that are small, but where we can see the results? And we will always say Kyrgyzstan. Kyrgyzstan is one of those markets that you actually run, and that's not my view, that's in the view of many of my members that we represent, that you can actually run very small, with small budgets, right? Doesn't include like multi-million, but you can have very small impactful programs and then see the results. And the entrepreneurial business of the Kyrgyz population is admirable. They also offer, and I think this is just a term that I recently learned, which is called business empathy, right? It's not us coming with the American business model and asking them to accept and adopt that, but we are trying to be empathetic and see what is in the interest of the Kyrgyz Republic. So we wanted to make sure that the business is mutually beneficial. And the business landscape is largely run by the private sector. Kyrgyzstan is the only country in Central Asia that consistently has been bringing business delegations to the United States. We hosted multiple delegations here that wanted to engage with the private sector, that wanted to engage with the U.S. government. And the beauty of them having the visas and being able to bring these delegations actually have largely advanced their understanding of how the U.S. works. And so we used our platform because we understand our main goal is just so that an FYI is to promote American interests and American investments into Central Asia, into the Kyrgyz Republic. However, we understand that trade is never a one-way traffic, that we have to reciprocate, right? That we have to work as partners. And so whenever the delegations from Kyrgyzstan do come here, we always try to meet with them, connect them with potential new companies, with the U.S. government, and help them be better informed about the benefits of engaging with the United States. And again, realistically, if you look at the market, right, global market, you see that one of the most lucrative markets is the United States. Having said that, we also see the benefits of engaging with Kyrgyzstan. And I'll just name a few sectors. For example, the IT sector. There was a stereotypical belief that certain large economies of Eurasia were at the forefront of the IT development. However, again, in the view of our companies, Kyrgyzstan was number one in Central Asia and in Eurasia in terms of developing their capacity right after the war in Ukraine. And so now we see a lot of business development and support for IT-related sector from Kyrgyzstan to American companies that operate either here in the United States or elsewhere. We see a lot of international engagement. They were one of the first ones, the private sector of Kyrgyzstan, to engage with the Middle East. Again, that's a new business audience. And when people talk about the U.S., the competitors of the U.S., they again, traditionally go to Russia and China. But we always remind them, there is the Middle East, there is EU, and there is Turkey, and then there is Iran, and then there are other countries, right, that the U.S. sometimes doesn't have these traditional, rapidly growing relations. But they are surrounded by countries that want to be there, that want to be present, that want to put the investments. And so we have to accept that. And we have to accept that our model sometimes needs to be adjusted and need to be amended in order to be active in Kyrgyzstan. So IT sector being one. The second sector is healthcare. Again, there was a naive belief that Kyrgyzstan needs funding, and rightly so, for large projects. The government, which is very smart and very strategic in their ways, want to rely on international financial institutions to run projects in a very, like you said, Dr. Starr, in a very open, transparent, and anti-corrupt way, which is great. But we also see that there is a government subsidy going into the sector such as healthcare. And again, that comes as a surprise to many. Education. As Almazbek mentioned, education. I think that Kyrgyzstan is one of the first countries that started with their launch of private schools. And I know that the previous Kyrgyz diplomat, he is now in charge of, and please forgive me if I'm wrong, I think the school network is called Bilim Khona. And I went to the school and I saw, and then it was just exceptional. They hired foreign teachers and et cetera, et cetera. Agricultural processing. Especially in the business of berries growing. We see a lot of activities. We also see a lot of desire to engage with UC Davis, for example, right? And to adopt their technologies. So I know that we're running kind of like out of time, but we would like to see, we were the first ones to bring up the B5+1 back in the days, when the C5+1 was just the very emergence. And so we said, where is the business discussion? Where is a platform for business to engage with Central Asian countries? So we applaud the fact that the US government has implemented this P5+1, that this year, at our request, the conference will be hosted in Kyrgyzstan, and we look forward to seeing many of you. But I just want to emphasize that do not discard Kyrgyzstan. Do not ignore Kyrgyzstan. As I was in the previous meeting today, and they said, never forget the region, because the region will never forget you. So, and I think that that's a reminder. So I know that we have a lot of priorities, and we are always in a mode that is kind of like in the sensation mode, right? So we go from one conflict to another, from one crisis to another. But then there is a reliable partner, such as Kyrgyzstan, that is eager to support, to work, and to host American companies. So
Thank you very much, Elena. Let me ask Almaz, very simple question. What do you see as the future of Kyrgyz-American relations? And what are the key factors shaping?
I think there's a good perspectives that we have good relations with United States and Kyrgyz relations, so we can develop many how can I say sides, for example, economically with a particular focus on investment like startups, product development, efficiency in renewable energy and evolving technologies such as cryptocurrency and blockchain can be good, how can I say, deal between the countries. And as Elena mentioned, that IT and innovation, and particularly in the domain of cybersecurity, is the key factor. When I was Minister of Education, they brought around 14 university directors to Silicon Valley, to Austin and Washington, D.C. To show them how the startups are working here and what about the innovation hubs. It was a good experience. After returning back to Kyrgyzstan, 50 universities opened startup centers under universities. And now these startups are working and how can I say, with students and bringing ideas and incubating these ideas to bring into business. Yeah, this is also a good evidence of these relations. And education, of course, plays a key role. Before, how can I say, over 3 decades, we had many educational projects. And for example, the programs like Fulbright, Flex, and the other programs must continue. And this is also important for human capacity. And in medical sector, as Elena mentioned, this is very important. For example, distance surgery is a very, how can I say, interesting topic. In Kyrgyzstan, unfortunately, there is a lack of the medical opportunities, but staying in Boston or Houston, we could, how can I say, make some distance surgeries that will be very beneficial for, how can I say, Kyrgyzstan. And research and development, of course, is one of the key topics in our relations that the United States could, how can I say, adopt its advancing new technologies can be highly advantageous for Kyrgyzstan. And these cooperations could deepen our relations more. And in Central Asia context, also the Central Asia has a huge territory, but there is only living 72 million people. And in this regard, so security issues, regional stability is very important. And U.S. Kyrgyz relations, as it was positive before and in the future, must be, we need to keep the relations in a deeper way.
Bravo. Well, this is all very encouraging, very positive, very constructive. However, and this is a big however, if you look at the Kyrgyz press, if you look at the American press, you're struck by the absence of news about the other. For example, American readers, whether they're newspapers or journals or technical areas, rarely hear directly from Kyrgyz. You have wonderful experts. I mean, our friend Beishenaliev is one, but there are many, many others. And we know from the Rumsfeld Fellowship Program what talents there are. We never hear from them, even though they have fluent English and where they could be translated immediately. our press should hear about Kyrgyzstan, about what President Japarov is doing and has done. This is an urgent need. It won't happen by functioning behind a screen of invisibility. You have to get out and communicate everything going on, the good, the bad, everything in Kyrgyzstan. It's a fascinating country. It's an active and dynamic country. People in the rest of the world need to know that. And the best people to represent that, these developments, these very positive developments into the rest of the world, are Kyrgyz themselves, beginning at the presidential office. Will help, but that's an important task. Tell me, Leonid, are you worried about the development of a two-tiered economy of Central Asia in which you have, on the one hand, the middle powers, as they're now being called, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, and add Azerbaijan, really now functionally a part of Central Asia. These are calling themselves and have been rightly called middle powers, but that leaves Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, and Turkmenistan as something less than middle powers. Are you worried about this? And what can we be doing on both sides, in Bishkek, in Washington, to close the gap between the middle powers and the three smaller powers?
I think we are not concerned about that, because to the contrary, we see a lot of strategic partnership among Central Asian states and Azerbaijan. We see a lot of respect for their economies, for their potential, and for the opportunities they can offer. I mean, there is a realistic view. However, we do not see any seniority in terms of what countries are important. What we see, and President Mirziyoyev, President Japarov, and President Rahmon have all emphasized the unity of Central Asian states. And I think that's very important, that there is a unity in business. They understand that only united they can work and they can attract more American companies. And they also understand that their position in the supply chain. So, for example, like Kyrgyzstan can be a great gateway, right, to other markets. So Tajikistan, one of the largest owners of the antimony resources, for example, and critical minerals, can also play a role. Uzbekistan, with its own very diverse industry, can be a certain player. So each one of them has a role, and certainly we do not want to prescribe. Every country has their sovereign interests, and so they're going to do and to act in what is the best interest of their countries. However, we also see what is in the best interest of the region. So I think it's a partnership, like in business, and we've only seen like very strong cooperation rather than just a segregated division of.
Well, the cooperation was certainly evident, dramatically evident, at President Japarov's meeting in Chholpan-Ata. I'm surprised at how ambitious the presidents were at that meeting. And of course, you could say, well, Tajikistan's president didn't sign. Well, there were problems at that point that were unresolved, and that's understandable. You say, well, Turkmenistan didn't sign immediately. Well, also, you had a new president who didn't feel empowered to rush off to Issyk-Kul and sign a document without going back to his government. So I think we underestimate the significance of President Japarov's Chholpan-Ata initiative. And it seems to me that no country is better placed as a convening place and convening power for future meetings. And that this should, I'm sure you could get international assistance for the costs of such things, but this would have dramatic significance, because you've already outlined several dozen areas where everyone wants cooperation. Now, how do you translate that into practical, institutionalized arrangements? That is the challenge for the next Chholpan-Ata meeting or any future meetings that take place in Kyrgyzstan. It seems to me the ball is in Kyrgyzstan's court, And interestingly, and I have no doubt about this, all your partners in the region are grateful for Kyrgyzstan's playing a convening role. Now, to do that, it's necessary as a first step, it seems to me, to summarize what has been done since the Cholpan Ata meeting and what hasn't been done. But let me turn away from that issue for a moment and take up something which both of my colleagues have alluded to, and that is the fact that the Kyrgyz Republic is in a complicated neighborhood. It has two very, very large powers on its doorstep, one of them with imperial memory, and the other with ambitions that are global in scope. How does a relationship with the United States fit into that? Well, I think the answer has been given very clearly by the Kyrgyz government itself under several presidents, including President Japarov, and that is that yes, the Kyrgyz Republic wants to maintain practical and cordial relations with both China and Russia, but at the same time, it seeks to balance these with cordial, practical, and functioning relations with the West in general and with the United States. So it seems to me everything that's been discussed today is not against anyone. It is for the Kyrgyz Republic, it is for the United States, and it seems to me our two wonderful guests today, Almazbek Beishenaliev, former Minister of Education and scholar of international scope, and Elena Son, who is absolutely on top of the American Kyrgyz and indeed all Central Asian business relations. We're very grateful to you both for being with us today and to our audience for sharing this with friends, as well as for your watching it yourselves. And we'll be continuing in the same spirit very shortly on other programs to be announced.
And Dr. Starr, I'd like just to mention that President Japarov has really been a visionary in terms of international gathering, right, of leaders, not only Central Asia, but also providing his country's platform for discussions with the EU. And for example, we did use that as an incentive for the US government top leadership, right, under the previous administration, to meet with Central Asian presidents, including President Japarov. So he's really a master of putting together discussions and meetings that benefit collectively the entire region. And so we applaud his government for being so open and active in engaging with the US, with complex markets such as the US, and for his and his embassy's robust efforts. And we're using the opportunity, I would also like to welcome the newly arrived Kyrgyz Ambassador Madagazeev into the United States. And so hopefully after the presentation of the presenting the credentials, we will have the opportunity to meet with him and also hear his views on how the Kyrgyz government intends and plans to continue the engagement with the United States.
Thank you very much. I just want to conclude with a principle that is understood in every capital of Central Asia and in the Caucasus increasingly, and that is that the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. It's not enough just to add them together. It's to create a whole. In the economic sense, that's the best way to lead. Everything will follow if the economic relations grow and deepen. So I think that benefits everyone, and to the extent the United States can play a central role in that activity, I'm for it. Our institute is for it. I think most of our viewers are for it as well. Thank you.